Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk as we are in the third week of the month of Elul and reading the Sedra of Ki Savo, when you come into the land. And just as we had the signposts for the previous 2 weeks, the first signpost from the letter, from the Sedra of Shoftim, which is the requirement to set up human systems of justice, to be aware of the concept of justice as we prepare for the coming festival of Rosh Hashanah, and that was the focus that we would have on the first week. The second week, last week's Sedra of Ki Seitze, when we saw that many of the mitzvahs were actually focusing on helping vulnerable. So a way that we could focus our preparations for the month of Elul was to think about the lessons of the Torah, the specific messages of the Torah, and how we care for vulnerable people in society, even vulnerable elements of creation, including animals. All of this was covered within this very large range of mitzvahs, the largest amount in any Sedra that was in last week's Sedra. And this week we come to the Sedra of Ki Savo, when you come into the land. And the area of focus, I think, for this third week of Elul, for this month of preparation for Rosh Hashanah, would be the requirement, the Torah requirement, which in itself is something that's quite perplexing, to serve Hashem with joy, with simcha. And this concept of simcha, this concept of joy, is so central to the way we think about performing the mitzvahs. And it might even seem incongruous at this point, because we've got the preparations for Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a serious Yom Tov. It's a festival that requires a lot of introspection, and it's not a sad festival. It's not no associations with mourning, but equally it is serious. So how can we incorporate this concept of simcha into our pre-Rosh Hashanah introspections and preparations? And I think it's really very telling the way this concept of simcha actually works to bring all of the themes of the Sedra of Ki Savo into clearer focus, and also gives us insights into how what we mean by simcha, and how we can use it to elevate ourselves, and how we can use it to understand the complexities of the declarations that feature at the beginning of the Sedra of Ki Savo, which are the declarations that the farmer makes and declaims when he brings his first fruits, and also when he separates his tithes on the one hand, and then how we can actually see how that fits together with the list of blessings and curses that feature at the latter half of the Sedra of Ki Savo, and how strangely it is actually simcha that unites all these apparently unconnected themes, and really gives us great insights into how we are meant to serve Hashem. So first of all, if we look at the declarations that we find at the beginning of the Sedra, and that is going to be chapter 26, and these two declarations, the first fruit declaration and the declaration of the giving of the tithes, are from verses 1 to right until verse 15. And just to read this beautiful the beautiful psukim that actually feature in the Haggadah as well. And tellingly, Moshe Rabbeinu starts off by saying, Ki Savo el ha'aretz, when you come into the land. And although actually, and Rashi points this out, that this declaration, this requirement to declare, was only was only going to be operational once the land had been conquered. So it wasn't actually the first thing they did when they entered the land, because it almost sounds like it is. When you come into the land, this is what you have to do. But I think that by Moshe Rabbeinu saying it, even though actually in time sequence it's not going to happen like that, he is showing how much of a priority this is, and why should it be such a priority. And if we look at the words, we'll see that the farmer, when he brings his first fruits, is really, even though he has worked so hard, and maybe especially because he has worked so hard, and he could think that it's the fruit of his labors, but he has got to internalize that it is Hashem's blessing. Yes, he has worked so hard, and his work is a vital component of the fact that he is reaping the rewards, but it is that acknowledgement of everything being a gift from Hashem, never losing sight of that fact. And this is such a vital part of our psyche, and we'll come to see how that attitude of gratitude is really a central ingredient of happiness. So if we just have a look here, I'm just going to go fast forward to verse 9. This is after the farmer has actually given a very brief version of history, right from Arami Oved Ovi, which is my father was a wandering Aramean, referring to Abraham Avinu, or even referring to Lavan, potentially trying to trick Yaakov, and then he's saying that we were persecuted by the Egyptians, and we cried to Hashem, and he listened to us and he saved us. And it's all very personal. The farmer who has come so many years later is identifying with a national history, and he is associating that history with the blessed presence, the promise of Hashem to Avraham Avinu to bring us to the land of Israel. And then he says in verse 10, Va'ata, and now, Hine hivesi es reishis peri ha'adama, behold, I have brought the first of the fruits of the ground, asher nosata li Hashem, that Hashem has given to me. And the Torah is saying, Hashem has given this to me. Yes, I've worked so hard. I have tended the vineyards. I have tended the orchards. This is hard work, but I realize this is a gift from Hashem. Vehinachta lifnei Hashem Elokecha, and you will place it before Hashem, your God, and you should wave it before Hashem your God, and you will bow down before Hashem your God. And you should rejoice in all the good that your God has given you, and to your household, you and the Levite and the convert who is in your midst. And so this is the first declaration, and we see that the theme of happiness is linked to this first declaration, and happiness is clearly acknowledging that everything is from Hashem, and it is this expressed gratitude, as opposed to just taking things for granted, as opposed to just thinking it's all my own efforts that have achieved this result. And this connection, this focus and acknowledgement of the fact that everything has come as a gift from Hashem, this is a source of happiness. And then we continue to the second declaration, which follows straight on. That is when the farmer will give the tithes, will give that percentage at all different levels. He has got the tithe that has to be Maaseh Sheni. He's got the tithe that has to be given to the Levite, to the poor person. All of these categories of giving if you like. It's a most equitable form of taxation, and we could argue that who is happy to pay their taxes? And I think that this is how this theme of happiness continues, that we realize that when we give, when we think of people who have less than us, who are less fortunate for reasons beyond our control, there but for the grace of God, and this is actually something that brings us happiness and joy as well. And I think that we come to a very perplexing again, the text that the farmer has to say, and this is chapter 26, verse 13. Va'amarta livnei Hashem Elokecha, and you will say before Hashem your God, Bi'arti hakodesh min habayis. I have separated the holy, the from the house. V'gam nesativ lalevi v'lager v'layosem, and I have also given it to the Levite, to the convert, and to the orphan, v'la almona, and to the widow, kachol mitzvoscha asher tzivisani, according to all your commandments that you have commanded me. Lo avarti mitzvosecha, I did not transgress any of your mitzvahs. V'lo shachachti, and I did not forget. And this is very strange, that we hear that the farmer is saying, I have done everything that you have told me to do, and I did not forget. And we don't say that with any other mitzvah. We don't say, I haven't forgotten to do it. We do it, we'll make a blessing over it, and we'll do it. And then we don't say afterwards, after we've, for example, taken a lulav and an esrog on Sukkot, we won't say, Hashem, I have taken the lulav and esrog as you have told me, and I did not forget. So what is this need to acknowledge or to declare that I haven't forgotten? So that's something that we're going to come back to later. It's perplexing. But again, I would say, even though the word simcha isn't actually used with this declaration, I think that it is this continuing theme that you could say people, as I mentioned before, are generally not happy to pay their taxes, but it is done, what the Torah is asking us to do here, the way it is calculated, the way it is expressed, it is something that we will say, we want to do this. We realize that this is necessary for a fair functioning society. The Torah has given us the perfect socialist system, and we can all feel that the whole of society is functioning better because of what we're doing, as opposed to being resentful that we have to give over our, in inverted commas, money. And so those are the two declarations, and we see that when we have these kind of attitudes, then the word simcha is in not perhaps happy in the happy clappy sense, in the sense that we might associate with physical gratification, physical pleasures, although all of these are acknowledged and they will contribute to being happy as well. But then how do these two sections fit with the list of the blessings and, more importantly, the curses that come in the latter part of the Sedra? And again, I think that we've got a very powerful hint that if we look right in the middle of the section that deals with the curses, and that is a very long and difficult section in the Torah to read, and it runs from chapter 28 verse 15 all the way through to chapter 28 verse 69. And so this is really from verse 15 to verse 69, and the consequences of failing to observe the mitzvahs as they are referred to in the Gutnik Chumash, and we will often call them curses, and they are horrific to the point of sounding even sadistic. And wedged in the middle, and verse 45, we'll have this section, Uvo alecha kol haklolos ha'ele, and all these curses will come upon you, orodafucha, and will pursue you, vehisigucha, and will overtake you, ad hishomdecha, until you are destroyed. Kilo shamata b'kol Hashem Elokecha, because you did not listen to the voice of Hashem your God, lishmor mitzvosov v'chukosov asher tzivcha, to guard and to carry out his commandments and his statutes that he has commanded you. And then verse 47 continues, Tachas asher lo ovadata es Hashem Elohecha b'simcha, uvetuv levov meirov kol. And because you did not serve God, your God, with joy and gladness of heart when you had an abundance of everything. And so how are we to use this quality, use this state of mind of simcha to act as a remedy to prevent the curses from happening? And when we are able to incorporate simcha in our lives, in the performance of the mitzvahs, and this is something that is going to act as an antidote, as a prevention for the threatened curses, for the curses that unfortunately, if we look through our history, we can see have come to pass. And the Torah is telling us, and I think that we are going to link the concept of simcha that we found in the declarations at the beginning of the Sedra, and then we are going to look and read this terrible list of curses to realize that by taking our performance of all of the mitzvahs with and infusing them with this concept of simcha, that is something that takes us higher in our service of Hashem, and it is something that can actually prevent these curses coming to pass. And very interesting, actually, if we look at the Rambam, Maimonides, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, and in his laws of Yom Tov, in his Hilchos Yom Tov, and I'm going to read from chapter 6, verse 20. This I'm going to translate the Rambam. How do we understand simcha? So we could. There is a posuk in Tehillim, and that is Perek 104, verse 5, that says that wine makes a person happy. And we are not thinking in terms of the chemical high, the fact that people will take alcohol and become drunk, and they'll say that is when they feel happy. This is not the kind of simcha that the Torah is referring to, and Rambam says so very, very clearly. And I'm going to just read this out. When an individual eats and drinks and rejoices on the festival, he should not become overly involved in wine and playful laughter and levity. That is not happiness, simcha, but is debauchery and foolishness. We were commanded to experience happiness, but this is a happiness which involves the service of the Creator of all, as it is written, and he quotes from our Sedra, all these curses shall befall you because you did not serve your God in joy and happiness. Now we have this quote from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha, and mitzvah gedola lios b'simcha. And many times in Perek 100 of Tehillim, we've got this idea of serving Hashem with simcha. And while one can feel good and relaxed with wine, and this is not the simcha, as the Rambam very clearly is saying, that is actually being referred to here. But why actually, when we think about it, we make kiddush over wine? And the verse in Tehillim says that wine does actually make a person happy. So if we look at the process of making wine, that ask any person, vintner, I believe the correct term is, that she has to work extremely hard to plant his vineyard, to tend the vines. This is a very, very intricate, back-breaking, laborious act in order to produce the wine. And it is this combination of the hard work that is involved, and then afterwards the enjoying the result of that hard labor, which is the wine, which is this the chemical reaction, and it is going to help perhaps relax, and a person is going to feel happier as well. So in all these ways, wine is going to contribute in the right quantities at the right occasions. That is something that can contribute to lifting the spirits and to imbuing a person with a state of simcha. But really, it is, if we think about when we make Kiddush on Shabbos and on Yom Tov, and the prescribed times that we have this prescription, and that people will talk also about the health benefits of red wine. But the bottom line is that it is all very much a combination of physical and spiritual. It is about the balance of having the hard work that goes into producing the wine, the attitude towards the fruits of one's labor, the fruits that we read about at the beginning of the Sedra with the declaration of the first fruits, and also understanding that everything is a gift from Hashem. And when we look at everything that we do in this way, then even paying our taxes, as we are told we have to pay, we have to think about the Levite, the ger, the convert, the widow, the orphan. Because we realize that everything is a gift, it's not going to be a cause of distress for us to give it, because we are really just redistributing what Hashem has given to us, as opposed to thinking this is mine and I don't want to part with it and this is going to cause me distress to part with it. I will actually, because I'm looking at it as something, yes, I've worked, I've contributed, but this is part of Hashem's gift, part of Hashem's blessing, and I am fine to give it to help other people. Not only am I fine, I'm actually happy. I experience simcha in this way. And when you think about a society that functions like this, that people are able to work hard, to enjoy the fruits of their labor, and to share. I think that's another vital component that we get from this week's Sedra, that a crucial element of the simcha is the fact that we are sharing it. It's not something that we take for ourselves and we keep to ourselves, but rather we get that extra measure of joy because we are spreading it, because we are giving it. And I think that when we approach, as we are coming to the conclusion of the third week of the month of Elul, and really thinking about the simcha, about even in a time of introspection, a serious time, that does not mean that we are not performing all of these mitzvahs. We are not going about this pre-Rosh Hashanah preparation of introspection, of getting ourselves ready for that serious moment of Rosh Hashanah, but we are doing it with joy. And this is something that needs to percolate through all the mitzvahs that we do, realizing that when we are performing a mitzvah, we're actually creating a connection between us and Hashem, and this is the source of greatest simcha. So I think that this is the theme. This is the signpost for the third week. I'm suggesting the third week of Elul, and this is part of the prayer that our preparations and the focus on simcha should really bring simcha into everybody's life. And please God, set us all up for a year of simcha, in the sense that the Sedra of Kisovo is really teaching us this very special Sedra of preparation that Moshe Rabbeinu is really already looking forward to coming into the land of Israel and telling us what is so important, what is on the priority list for that entry into the land of Israel. Even though chronologically it's not going to be for another 14 years, but in the priorities, this is something that is so crucial. And I hope that we all absorb it and are able to put this concept and reality into practice, and be blessed with much simcha. Wishing everybody a very good Shabbos.